markets for health projects.
We are playing the Hot at 20 quiz, the Hot FM Staff Edition. We have Kiwe, who is from the marketing department. Hi, Kiwe, how are you? I'm fine. We are okay. How are you feeling? Yes. All right, so now Kiki, I want to find out from you. What's something you're really good at that might surprise us? Apart from
but the mic, you won't be able to read.
Oh, the mic. Now, Kiki, I want to find out from you. What makes working here so enjoyable for you?
I think the people. I remember my first week and my first month. Everyone was so welcoming. Yeah, it's like a whole family. Everyone is very welcoming, and yeah, the environment is good.
All right, Kiki, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, what's his name and what title does he hold?
Your show is one of the shows that I really don't like to miss, but I look forward to the word of the day.
Pass.
What?
This song won in the Hot FM's Panganyimbo back in 2010. What's the title and artist?
I don't know the title.
What is the title of this movie?
I didn't look in the fridge. I did in the fridge, but where is the chemical?
Right back.
Whose voice is this?
Hot FM was opening at that was 2005, eh?
Kaliwa?
What's the full name of this Hot FM employee?
David Ngoma.
All right, Kiki, and your time is up. That was 60 seconds. Kiki, you got one correct.
Oh, wow.
1.5 ish. You got one correct, Kiki.
Not bad.
Not bad.
The heat is on. Welcome to Zambia's hottest radio talk show, The Hot Seat, exclusive to Hot FM 87.7.
Hi, good morning, and welcome to Tuesday's edition of your favorite talk show, The Hot Seat, and I'm your host, Hope Chishala Kauma. Now, this morning we are featuring Patriots for Economic Progress leader Sean Tembo. Top of the hour, that is at 10, but we'll be opening up the phone lines if you have any questions or contributions to make. Otherwise, we're also live on our Facebook page. That is the Hot FM Zambia Facebook page, so you can post your questions or contributions there as well. So once again, our guest this morning on the Hot Seat is Patriots for Economic Progress President, Mr. Sean Tembo. Mr. Tembo, good morning.
Thank you, Hope, and a very good morning to you, as well as the listeners and viewers out there.
All right, good morning. You're welcome. Seeing you for the first time in studio in 2025. How's the new year so far for you?
So far, so good. I'm happy that it's raining heavily, I think, in most parts of the country. So if it continues at this pace, I'm sure we'll end up having a good harvest. And, that always adds good vibes to the nation because people have plenty of food and, issues of lack of water, lack of this, animals dying, those issues are not there. So we can focus on other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I saw you posted on your Facebook page a few days ago that I took a 1-month-long sabbatical from politics, but now I'm back. What necessitated that?
This period, that's when my children come from boarding school. Almost all my children are in boarding school. So during the December-January period, that's when they are all in the house. Before they go back to their respective schools. When they go, it's just me and my wife. So, when they're around, it's important to be around as well so that you spend some time with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was great. All right. If you're just joining us right now, our guest this morning on the Hot Seat is Patriots for Economic Progress President, Mr. Sean Tembo. Now, Mr. Tembo, how is party mobilization progressing, and what impact has your membership in Tonse Alliance had on your party?
Party mobilization, Hope, is going so far so good. We are happy with the strides that we have made. We've planned a number of activities as Patriots for Economic Progress in 2025. One of the key activities we've planned, which we've already started implementing, is to hold a number of congresses, district congresses, which will be followed by provincial congresses, and then it will be followed by a national congress. So these district congresses, they are commencing in various parts of the country. They are being coordinated by the respective provincial chairman. And I'm basically going to be attending a number of them, not all of them, but a number of them. And then when it comes to the stage of provincial congresses, which will commence sometime in August, then I'll be able, together with the national leadership, I'll be able to attend all of them. And then, of course, the National Congress is scheduled for some time in November of this year here in Lusaka. So those are the key activities as a party, which we have basically lined up. In terms of how our membership into the Tonse Alliance has impacted on us as Patriots for Economic Progress, of course, there's that comradeship that arises when you are in a bigger grouping. And then...
are you enjoying the relationship so far?
Yeah, so far so good. But of course, like siblings in a house, not all days are rosy. You have misunderstandings every now and then, but then the bigger good overrides whatever small misunderstandings you might have with your brothers. So yeah, we are enjoying our membership into Tosin so far, and we are happy about it.
And as PEP, what are you bringing to the table?
As PEP, we are bringing, of course, competence. We are bringing efficiency and effectiveness. For us, we might be a small and growing party, but when we commit ourselves to doing something, we always do it. So if we commit ourselves to say, in this particular election, this is the mobilization activities that we're going to undertake on behalf of a candidate, then we make sure it is done. If people do something which we are not happy about, they harass us the way we were harassed in Kawambwa by those thugs, and we say we are going to take you to court, then we take you to court. So we don't say something that we're not going to do. So that is the culture that we are taking to the Tonse Alliance, to say, look, for people to take us seriously, when we go out there to the public and tell the public that we are going to do this, then we need to live up to our word and do exactly what we told the public we are going to do. So that is one of the key values that we are taking to the Tonse Alliance.
And since we're discussing the Tonse Alliance right now, Zambia Must Prosper has written a letter to join the Alliance's partnership. What is the progress on this matter?
Yeah, so we've had interactions as Tonse Alliance with the Zambia Must Prosper president in the last Council of Leaders meeting that we held. And of course, the ZMP had to go to their structures and get the necessary approvals to basically join the Tonse Alliance, which they have done. So I believe that in the next Council of Leaders meeting, which is scheduled in the next week or two, we are going to formally welcome the Zambia Must Prosper Party to the Tonse Alliance as our newest member to the Alliance, and we look forward to that. I think it. Do
you feel this will be a beneficial partnership?
It will be a great addition. I have very high regard for Comrade KBF. I think he's a very vibrant politician. I think he's very articulate. I think he has a very good understanding of how elections should be run. And I think it will go a long way in enhancing the prospects of the Alliance to make sure that we position ourselves to take over leadership of this country in 2026.
Now let's get to how the Alliance is faring with regards to elections. Let's touch on Petauke Central, the by-elections coming up. So violence has characterized the Petauke Central by-election campaigns with the Tonse Alliance candidate being assaulted. What's your take on these happenings right now with the campaigns?
Well, the political violence that is there, hope it is being, of course, perpetuated by the UPND, not just in Petauke, but you saw what happened in Kawambwa. And with the support of the Zambian government as well as the Zambia Police Service. That is why you saw in Kawambwa that when I was stabbed in Kawambwa Central Police Station, inside the police station, the perpetrators of that violence were allowed to walk out of the police station without even being stopped by the police or questioned, let alone being arrested. And when we came out of Kawambwa and we advised our members to defend themselves, you saw the response by the government in terms of Jack Mwimbo, in terms of Lai Hamonga, Zambia Police Service. They are now threatening the Tonse Alliance members and even arresting Tonse Alliance members for advising our members to defend themselves. The question is, what is wrong with defending ourselves? You saw Honorable Benwa Mpundu being summoned to the police, being charged with sedition, merely for advising Tonse Alliance members to defend themselves. Meanwhile, President Hakainde Hichilema...
That's pointing to, I mean, for some, that's promoting violence if you
defend
yourself. If you're
going
to state that.
If you are going to say defend yourself.
When you say, because this term is being used. So when you say at that point, defend yourselves, what exactly do you mean? How should they defend themselves?
You defend yourself when you are attacked. So you prevent the person who is attacking you. So you are defending yourself. That is a matter of common sense, really, in terms of what constitutes self-defense. It is a term that is readily used in society. It is a term that is well defined in the law, and it is in the Constitution. The Constitution of Zambia gives every citizen the right to defend themselves and to defend their property. So when you say that you're not encouraging
people to pick up weapons to defend themselves?
You can defend yourself with anything you want with. You understand? Because you are defending yourself. You understand? If you want to pick up a stone to defend yourself, you can pick up a stone to defend yourself. If you want to pick up a stick to defend yourself, you can pick up a stick to defend yourself. The Constitution is very clear. What the law says is that in defending yourself, the force, the amount of force you use should be proportional to the force of the attacker. That is the only requirement, legal requirement. So when you have a situation whereby Tonse members who are advising their members to defend themselves are being harassed by the government, by the police, and yet the same police are not doing anything, by UPND cadres who go and stab an opposition leader inside the police station, then the writing is on the wall. We don't need to explain to anybody, any reasonable person, unless that person is influenced by other factors. But any reasonable person can clearly see that the government of Zambia is sponsoring political violence using the ruling UPND party. It's very clear. And my belief is that the Zambian people, just like they rejected political violence under the PF regime, they are going to reject this political violence, which is state-sponsored by the UPND, come 2026 when we go to the polls. Because Zambians are peaceful people. So what evidence
do you have? I mean, you've just stated that. What evidence do you have there?
About what?
If you're going to say they are sponsoring the violence that we're seeing right now, you're saying government is sponsoring that.
The evidence is common sense. That's the evidence. Because if someone is going to pursue someone, let's say for 20 kilometers, the way those UPND thugs pursued us in Kawambwa, and the victims ran into a police station, they ran behind the inquiry's desk where there are police officers with firearms, and then the perpetrators follow the victims inside the police station, inside the inquiry's office, and stab a victim there. And the police are watching. Okay, they are watching. The perpetrators, they steal things from that person. They go outside, they go to the vehicle, they open the vehicle, they remove things, remove radio, the radio, they pull out the radio, they ransack the vehicle, and then they walk away. And the police don't do anything. And the police are state police. Then it's clear that the perpetrators of violence are working hand in hand with the state police. That's common sense. Unless someone tells me they don't have a fair share of common sense, then that's a different topic. But if someone has a fair share of common sense, the writing is on the wall. You don't need to show evidence. The evidence is in the common sense.
What do you make of the ECZ's reaction when you report these cases, when these cases are reported, and just how they've handled the elections so far, the Electoral Commission of Zambia?
So ECZ, again, you have a situation whereby all state institutions, you're talking about the Zambia Police Service, you're talking about the Electoral Commission of Zambia, you're talking about the Human Rights Commission, they've all ganged up against, against the opposition. In this case, against the Tonse Alliance, together with the government. Okay, so there's nothing they do about it. There's nothing they do about it. And the worst part of
they do about it, but okay, right now with the latest incidents, they have summoned the two parties that were found wanting. So I mean, you've just said they're doing. Is that
which two parties that were found wanting?
Well, with the NCP, the UPND.
That's nonsense, because the NCP are the ones who were attacked by the UPND, and the evidence is there. Honorable Yotam Mumtacharo's vehicle was badly damaged. Mr. Changa was badly injured. We saw him lying on the ground with blood. Did you see any pictures of a UPND member or supporter who was injured by the NCP? There is none. So the act of the Electoral Commission of Zambia to summon both UPND and NCP shows you that they are trying to water down the situation and portray, excuse me, a false image that the violence was perpetrated by both parties. It wasn't. It was the UPND attacking the NCP under the Tonse Alliance. So to me, that is total nonsense coming from the Electoral Commission of Zambia, which is typical of almost all state institutions.
So how can we stop this? I think most Zambians right now are tired of this trend. Whenever there's a by-elections, we know it will be marred with violence. There'll be the finger pointing. This party started this, that party started that. So how do we put an end to this, Mr. Tembo?
The only sure way to put an end to political violence is to vote out a government which is promoting political violence. And that can only happen in 2026. The thing about by-elections is that, the government is able to, including the ruling party, they are able to concentrate their violence to specific locations. Okay, so they can get cadres from Kanyama, get cadres from Mazabuka, get cadres from Choma, and take them to Pambashe. Get cadres from Osaka, take them to Petauke. So they'll always get away with it. And the way it is that the police are there to back up the cadres. So you are not only challenging the UPND cadres, but you are challenging a combination of UPND cadres and state police. You understand? So they will always get away with political violence in by-elections. But come a general election, they will not. Because it will be each one for himself and God for us all. You understand? In the general election, they will not have that concentration of cadres in one location. So that is why it is very difficult for the ruling party to manipulate a general election. A ruling party can manipulate by-elections and win by-elections even in areas where you would not expect them to win. Sometimes people who don't understand politics begin to believe that no, the ruling party is becoming popular and that they'll easily win 2026 or the next general election. It doesn't happen like that.
So you feel from what you've stated, you feel you as a sponsor, you stand no chance in Petauke?
Of course, Petauke is our stronghold. That is where our chairman, Dr. Edgar Chagwarungu, the 60th Republican president, comes from. So Petauke is our stronghold. Even we've won even Kawambwa. We won that election. Okay, I was on the ground there. We won that election. What happened is that on election day, if you allow me to explain how the UPND won the Kawambwa seat, or rather how they stole the Kawambwa seat. On the day of elections, in these rural areas, a lot of people are not literate. They don't know how to read. So on the ballot paper there, they don't know who is who. You understand? That's the majority of the people in the far-flung rural polling stations. So you have Kawambwa, and it had 8 wards. And some of those wards, like Ngona, like Kawambwa ward itself, like Ruena ward, which is in the Tea Estate, like Kala ward, which is around where Kala Barracks is, these 4 wards, these are relatively urban wards because they're around the town area. And then you've got certain wards which are very deep into the bush, like Rianga ward, like Rushiba ward, like Fisanga ward. Those were deep in the bush. Okay, and when you look at the statistics of Kawambwa by-election results, you'll see that in all the urban wards, the Tonse Alliance under the NCP won, convincingly won, like beat the UPND hands down. And then you'll find that in the rural ward where we were attacked, where the NCP president Peter Chanda was attacked and stabbed, where lawyer Celestine Mkandila was attacked and stabbed and his vehicle damaged, they basically prevented any election monitors, any polling agents were kicked out of the polling stations, and then they proceeded to manipulate the vote. So when you look at the turnout, you find that in the rural areas, the turnout, the wards in the rural areas, the turnout was far higher than the turnout in the urban wards. You get the point. So what they were doing there now, when they remained around, when they harassed everybody, stabbed everybody, and there was no Tonse Alliance representation to monitor in those polling stations, they started manipulating the vote. And for them to manipulate the vote, for it to be enough to overcome their losses in the urban wards, they had to create a far higher voter turnout. Because for intents and purposes, you can't have the far rural wards having a significantly higher voter turnout than the urban wards. You understand? So in Petauke, you realize that most of the wards in Petauke are reasonably urban, and the level of literacy is reasonably higher. So you will not have that manipulation that happened in Kawambwa, which is likely to happen in Pambashe, whereby a voter comes and they don't know how to read. They are given a ballot, they don't know how to read, and someone who is a UPNG supporter gets them and goes to the voting booth and is able to tick for them. And they don't want people to see how that assistance is being given, because it's just one person who is a UPNG supporter with the voter. They are at the booth. And
But
the
not
voter,
that you saw all that happen. You feel that's just how they managed to scoop Kawambwa.
they didn't scoop how they managed to steal Kawambwa. That is stealing. And we challenged that, because me, I was passing.
The results that
I was going from polling station to polling station. I challenged that. I said, look, these are monitors. So when you are helping a person who doesn't know how to read, it has to be balanced. Either the polling agents have to be there at the booth, or the monitors have to be there. And then you ask the person, Mayo, mrefu okuvotera wa nani? Ero muntu akweva, oh, inendefu okuvotera wa UPND, or ndefu okuvotera wa Tonse. And then you tick where that person says they want to vote. You tick for them, because they don't know how to read. They don't know which is which. You can't just go there, one person who is a UPND member and a voter who is illiterate, they go in a booth and the UPND member casts the vote on behalf of the illiterate vote. It means that there is no way of knowing whether they are casting on the right choice. Maybe the old woman says, oh, inendefu okuvotera wa candidate awa Tonse, and that UPND member on the booth, he casts on the UPND instead of Tonse where that person wants. Because that person can't read. So they can't even see that Nabambikira voti and upon the fire or Eposhi the fire. So you see, that is how they managed to steal the Kawambwa parliamentary seat. And that is the same formula they are going to use to try and steal Pambashe. But Petauke is different, because most of the people there are reasonably, it's an urban, constituency. Most of the people will just go there and cast their vote for themselves, because they're able to read for themselves. You get the point?
Okay, so how much confidence do you have in the ECZ? We have 2026 coming up. Looking at, listening to what you're pointing out right now, because all these are supposed to be presented to the Electoral Commission of Zambia, and we expect action to be taken. How do you see the handling of things in 2026, the general election?
General election, first of all, I wanted to put it on record that as far as I'm concerned, the Electoral Commission of Zambia is as compromised an institution as the Zambia Police Service. So in 2026, as Tonse Alliance, we are going to be going up against the UPND, we'll be going up against the government of Zambia, we'll be going up against the Electoral Commission of Zambia, we'll be going up against the Zambia Police Service. These are the institutions we are going to be up against in 2026. And maybe your follow-up question would be, given the amount of opposition that we are going to face from these combined institutions, are we going to be able to carry the day in 2026? And the answer is yes, because the will of the Zambian people is far greater than any institution, whether that institution is the government, whether that institution is the Electoral Commission of Zambia or the Zambia Police Service or the UPND party. The will of the Zambian people is far greater. And for us as Tonse Alliance, we are relying on the will of the Zambian people to overcome whatever machinations that this combination of institutions and the government are brewing for us, and they are preparing for us for 2026.
Now, Mr. Tambo, UN Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression and Opinion, Irene Khan, is in the country and has met several stakeholders. Have you had a chance to meet with her, and what are some of the submissions you've taken there?
So I haven't yet. I'm scheduled to meet with her during the course of this week, but I've already made written submissions through the email address. So the purpose of the meeting that we're going to have now is merely to do oral submissions to augment the written submissions that we have so far submitted. So in terms of these submissions, there are two aspects to it. We have made submissions as Patriots for Economic Progress, And then we are also going to make submissions, consolidated submissions as Tonse Alliance. So some of the things we would have submitted as an individual political party will also feature in the submissions that we're going to essentially make as Tonse Alliance.
Yeah. Are you sharing any right now?
Of course, it's common knowledge. It's the human rights abuses that we have suffered under the UPND government. So we've, chronologically laid out these abuses, starting from the issue of freedom of expression, where we are being gagged. You tell your people to say, if you are attacked, go and defend yourselves. Then tomorrow you are being summoned to Woodlands Police Station and being charged with sedition. That is gagging the citizens, preventing them from enjoying their right to freely express themselves. So we've documented all those. We've talked about the issues of kidnappings by the police, whereby the police arrested me. I'm sure you remember that time, and basically kept me incommunicado from my lawyers, from my relatives, for 2 days until I was discovered in Bomoro. We've documented the force, undue force used by the police, where they came with grinders and started cutting down the door at my house. And there's video evidence to all this. So the need for debate is reduced when you have that kind of evidence. And for us, it's just to explain these violations by the UPND. And we've also outlined clearly in our submissions to the UN Special Rapporteur of selected justice. Okay? Selected justice in cases whereby crimes such as hate speech, such as sedition, only apply to people coming from selected regions of the country. And others, when they say bad things about other regions, they cannot be prosecuted. We saw YME being persecuted. We saw that taxi driver boy being incarcerated. And yet we have people like Honorable Douglas Yakarima, who refer to the people, the Bemba people of Luapula, as having a poverty of the mind. We have people like the Secretary General of the UPND, Honorable Batuke Imenda, who referred to the Bishop of Lusaka, His Grace Arik Banda, as a Lucifer. And yet, I personally took these cases to the Magistrates Court. I wanted to privately prosecute them, and the Director of Public Prosecutions basically denied me permission to proceed with private prosecution. We reported these cases to the police. The police were not interested to investigate them. So you have a clear pattern where the government is very selective in the application of justice. And we submitted that to the UN Special Rapporteur. We also submitted a category whereby people, opposition leaders who are convicted of offenses, the punishment does not fit the offense. Hope, me, I'm a strong believer of justice. I believe that we need a just society. I believe that wrongdoers should be punished accordingly. But that punishment should fit the offense. You understand? You have a case of GBM, who is currently incarcerated at Mambeshi prison, if you allow me to explain that point. And in that case, GBM was convicted of having supplied some foodstuffs to the Zambia Army and other defense wings when he was defense minister. And the charge there was that there was conflict of interest because the court refused to admit the declaration that GBM is said to have made before proceeding with that tender. When you look at the figures there, you'll find that the supply of that foodstuff was around 5 million, and those foodstuffs were delivered. Okay, they were delivered. It's not like he supplied air at Arista Supply Umwera, such that that 5 million was all pocketed. He supplied the foodstuffs. Okay, and then, so if you're a court, even if he genuinely committed that offense, which I don't agree he committed, but for argument's sake, let's say he genuinely committed that offense, and you are trying to claw back the benefits accrued from that particular transaction. So 5 million worth of foodstuffs, you estimate how much was the cost of these foodstuffs? Maybe 3.5. So what was his profit? Maybe 1.5. Okay. So if you want to claw back some money from that transaction, you need to claw back that 1.5. But when you look at the pronouncements of the court, you find that they are talking about $6 million plus about 30 million kwacha, which they are trying to get, which they are getting from the assets of GBM. That is a total of about 80 million. No, more than that. 5 times 30, that's about 150. That's a total of almost 200 million. Now, we all know GBM. GBM became a businessman when he was young. He started his business in Kasama there, and he has been a hard worker. And he has always had money. You know, me, when I just completed my degree and I started working as an auditor at PricewaterhouseCoopers there, GBM Meeting was one of the companies that we went to audit. And I met GBM, and he had a fleet of Mercedes-Benz, you know, on his yard. He's always had money. And then now, just because he did one transaction, which in my view, he only benefited about 1.5 million kwacha, which is peanuts. When you look at all his net worth, you want to grab all his assets on top of locking him up in Mwembeshi prison.
It looks like peanuts, but it's down to acquiring that money.
Yes, yes. So if a certain portion of his wealth is tainted, then address that portion. You understand? Address that portion. Because the rest of his money, he genuinely acquired it. You don't have any evidence that the rest of his wealth was ill acquired. You understand? So that is Justice Hope. You need to make sure that you are fair and equitable. You shouldn't see like a window at all because he was convicted of this offense. This is now an opportunity to grab all his assets. That is not justice anymore. You know, that is not just. And me, I believe in fairness and equity because I believe that each one of us needs to be treated fairly and equitably. Even my worst enemy, I would want to treat them fairly and equitably. You understand? Because that is the basis of any sober society. When you look at GBM, he was very gracious in terms of how he was giving out his wealth. Me, when I was in the opposition alliance with the UPND prior to 2021, and the GBM was still the vice president of UPND, most of the party expenses that were incurred by UPND, it is GBM who was footing them out. You know, you want to charter a plane, it's $15,000. GBM will put up $10,000. HH will only put up $5,000. So he literally financed the party, and there was nothing wrong with his money when he was financing UPND. Now that he left UPND and went back to PF, then his money is now tainted. You know, I remember a very clear incident, Hope, if you allow me, when Honorable Mike Mulongoti was very sick and admitted at UTH. So we went to visit Mike Mulongoti. He was very ill. He was bedridden. And it was me, HH, GBM, and I think Sylvia myself. And we parked near the maternity wing there. So he was admitted on the other side. So we walked all the way on that first floor corridor. We saw Mike Mulongoti, and after that, we started walking back. So on top there, when you're walking on top of a maternity wing there are those women who are caregivers, and they come from all sorts, you know, all parts of the country, waiting for their relatives who are admitted in the wards. So they assemble there. There were about 30 or so of them. And then they saw GBM, and then they say, our president, because he was very popular, our president, they all went to overwhelm GBM. And GBM introduced them to HH and say, this is my president, me, I'm the vice. You know, that is how gracious he was. And then we chatted, they explained their problems, how long they had been there, you know, waiting for their relatives. And then when leaving, HH produced 100 kwacha to give to those 30 women or so. And me, I started digging in my pocket to just add on that 100 kwacha because I felt, you know, the 100 kwacha, these 30 women, was a governor, my 3 kwacha. And then GBM quickly produced a 10,000 kwacha and started giving those people my 400, then my 500 kwacha. That is how gracious GBM was. And that is how much he helped the UPND. And for today, you know, just because you've convicted him of a small offense where he only benefited about 1.5 million kwacha, you want to get all his assets, which he acquired over decades when he started his bakery in Kasama there. GBM was a multimillionaire before even HH was born. So that is being bad-hearted, in my view. You know.
So let's touch on the judiciary right now. How do we ensure the independence of the judiciary? Because the feeling for some right now is that most of these governance institutions have been politicized. Do you share those sentiments?
Definitely. So you have a situation whereby, it's very few individuals who want controversy. It's very few individuals who can stand up when they're being intimidated. So you have a situation whereby most of the judges and other judicial officers are intimidated by government. You saw how judges such as Joshua Banda, judges such as Judge Muma were, literally kidnapped by the police and charged with very funny charges. So that is victimization. When you do that to one judge, the majority of the judges who don't have the backbone to stand up to that intimidation will basically cower down. So when they are dealing with any case to do with the government, they'll ensure that they don't offend the government for fear that the government can manufacture, funny cases against them and have them arrested and maybe removed from the bench. You understand? So there will only be very few judges among all the judges who are going to have the backbone to stand up and do what they believe is right, what is just. So that is one way they have compromised the judiciary. The other way is by the appointments that they've made. We've seen the majority of the people they have appointed as judges. When you go on their social media, you go on their Facebook, 2017, 2018, you find this person posted photos when they were wearing UPND regalia. So you can clearly see that this person is affiliated to the UPND. They are not objective. They are partisan. So there's no way they can discharge.
But is this the first time we're seeing a party do that? The government in power do that?
Well, hope
appoint their own to these positions.
Hope, to be honest with you, it's not the first time. As Zambia, to a large extent, our judiciary has generally been compromised. But this is the worst level, in my view, of compromise that we have seen. In previous regimes, they would disguise the compromise, make it look a bit decent. You understand? For instance, they would never appoint a judge who was wearing regalia of a political party. That one was a no-no. But the level of compromise we see in the judiciary today is very blatant. Like, do what you want to do about it. We are going to appoint partisan members of the judiciary. You do what you want to do. Anyone who wants to stand in our way, we are going to violently remove them and embarrass you to the public. You saw how the three judges of the Constitutional Court were removed. So when the government does that, they basically send a message to the entire judiciary to say anyone who doesn't toe the UPND line is going to be violently removed from office. Then you would have totally compromised the judiciary. In fact, among the institutions that we are going to be up against as Tonse Arans in 2026, in addition to the UPND, the government, the Electoral Commission of Zambia, the Zambia Police Service, I think I need to add the judiciary, because the judiciary is 100%, let me not say 100%, is 98% compromised. There's still men and women in the judiciary who still have a backbone, but those are very few and far apart.
Let's throw in the Human Rights Commission. So the Human Rights Commission held a media briefing last week. Don't know if you took time to listen to what came out of that briefing. And the chairperson has come under fire for stating that Mombipiri's rights were not violated when she was detained in police custody in Kawambwa for 2 weeks. What are your thoughts on this?
Again, we've seen a number of these supposed watchdogs being compromised, and the Human Rights Commission is one of those institutions that have been compromised. That's why. Why
do you say so?
Because of their statements, the shallowness of their statements, and the partisan nature of their statements. Mombipiri was, Kawambwa police didn't have a provision for female, female detainees, and Mombipiri was literally being kept in what was described as a storeroom with no access to ablution facilities. And that complaint was a public complaint to say, look at the way this person who is a former member of parliament is being kept. Why can't you keep her at, let's say, Mansa Central Police so that she can have proper ablution facilities? And I'll ask you a question, Hope. If someone denies you ablution facilities, are your rights being violated or not? I'll answer that question myself. Of course, your rights are being violated, because if you don't have access to ablution facilities, how are you going to help yourself? You understand? So, for the Human Rights Commission to come out and say Mumbipiri didn't have her rights violated, in fact, what they said is that they want her to go and file a written report of how her rights were violated. Already, you can see that they are failing to do their job, because the moment there are media reports of someone's rights being violated, the Human Rights Commission, which is funded by the taxpayers of Zambia, is supposed to send a representative to go to Kawambo police station and do an investigation. Check. Are these the rights of this person being violated? You understand? And then when they meet the media, when they face the media, they are supposed to be telling the Zambian people to say, look, we went to Kawambo police station, we did an investigation, and we determined that Mumbipiri's rights were not violated. Not we are in Lusaka here. People are saying, oh, this person's rights are being violated. This person is being charged with a frivolous case of aggravated robbery and being denied bail, and yet, how can Mumbipiri steal a phone? Have you seen the house where Mumbipiri stays? Her house is worth more than 6 million kwacha. How can she go and steal a phone for 3,000 kwacha? So it doesn't make sense. Any reasonable Zambian who has a fair share of common sense, when they look at the facts presented by the police, they can see that this doesn't make sense. And this is merely a ploy to incarcerate her and not allow her to have bail. Already you can see the earlier case of Mumbipiri, whereby she was charged with murder she shot someone. Does Mumbipiri look like a killer? Someone who can kill someone in the name of politics? She's far from it, And they proceeded to hold her for more than 1 year on a charge of murder. And then the trial proceeded, and they saw they didn't have evidence, but they still incarcerated her. They knew they didn't have evidence. All the people who were testifying said Mumbipiri was not anywhere near the murder scene. And then on the day of judgment, instead of acquitting her, to say, oh, you know what, we've incarcerated you for more than 1 year on a charge of murder. Today is judgment day. Let the judge read his judgment. And they knew that the judgment would acquit Mumbipiri. They decided to enter a nore on the day of judgment, on the same day, after incarcerating her for more than 1 year. That's self-explanatory. Was Mumbipiri's rights abused? Yes, they were. So the Human Rights Commission, in my view, is very partisan, and they are shameless about it. And apart from that, even a number of these civil society organizations, these civil society organizations, whereby if there's a change of government, they quickly move to affiliate with the new government, change of government, they quickly move to affiliate with another government. They are also highly compromised. I saw a statement, if you allow me, Hope, quickly. I saw a statement from Transparency International about Kawambo by-elections. And that time I was on my 1 month sabbatical from politics, so I wasn't able to respond to it. But it's a statement that bothered me greatly. They said that in Kawambo by-elections, there was political violence recorded by both the UPND and the Tonse Alliance. There were incidents by the UPND and the Tonse Alliance. And yet, Transparency International failed to itemize the incidents where Tonse Alliance attacked the UPND. Because I was on the ground. Out of the 30-day campaign period in Kawambo, I was on the ground for about 23 of those 30 days. So I went to Kawambo 4 times, and there was no incident whatsoever. But what the Transparency International, which is supposed to be a reputable international, human rights and corruption fighting civil society organization, did was to try and paint a picture that violence we suffered, that stabbing we suffered inside Kawambo police station was reasonable because Tonse Alliance also perpetrated violence, which never happened. You know, the way the police operate, if there was any violence by the Tonse Alliance, they would have quickly been arrested, because you saw how people like Mumbipiri were arrested on frivolous charges of stealing a 3,000 kwacha phone, someone who lives in a 6 million kwacha house. So Transparency International, in my view, although they try to be objective on one or two things, generally they are biased in favor of government, just like the Human Rights Commission, just like other institutions which are supposed to be independent, like the Electoral Commission of Zambia, like the judiciary, like the Zambia Police Service, and so on and so forth. But we don't feel hopeless. We don't feel hopeless. That sounds good. We don't feel hopeless. Because 2026 is going to be different, and the will of the Zambian people shall prevail.
All right, in case you're just joining us, our guest this morning is Mr. Sean Tembo. He is Patriots for Economic Progress President, and we'll be opening up the phone lines shortly if you have any question or contribution. Now, Mr. Tembo, let's touch on this issue. Let's take a look at how we are faring economically as a country right now. And obviously, we know exactly what is affecting us, but let's throw in this. President Trump has announced a pause on foreign aid contributions. That's for about 90 days. This is to review if they align with his foreign policy. My question there is, what short to long-term measures do you think we need to employ right now as a country, and just the implications of this move right now?
You know, from my standpoint, Hope, the Zambian government in its current form does not have what it takes to properly run our economy. Before you talk about complicated things, you know, like economic policy, our fiscal policies, our monetary policy, where they increase the statutory reserve ratio, I think it's around 14% now. The monetary policy rate should be about 12.5. You know, the over-borrowing on the domestic market, which crowds out the private sector, where the private sector are not able to access finance, you know. Before you talk about all those supposedly complicated issues, they fail to run basic things like ensuring smooth flow of traffic at our borders. Okay, they fail to do basic diplomacy with our neighbors to facilitate a smooth flow of traffic, commerce and trade at the borders. You go to Sakanya border in Ndora, the trucks at Sakanya border, you know, Sakanya border is about maybe 20 kilometers from Ndora town. The trucks queuing to enter DRC through Sakanya border, they reach as far as Indeni, far after Indeni when you're coming out of Ndora. That is a stretch of more than 30 kilometers of queues of trucks. You go to Mokambo border in Mfulira, that gravel road between Mufulira town to Mokambo border is about 15 kilometers, and it's that red soil. So when it rains, the trucks there get stuck. So when one truck gets stuck, then there's no access for any other trucks to pass through the border. And the queues will come and pass the entire Mufulira town all the way up to the bridge, close to that Kama checkpoint going to Chingola. You understand? You go to Kazungura, you find wrong queues. And if you as a nation, first of all, you are landlocked, but you are failing to properly manage your borders to make them efficient and effective so that there's a free flow of commerce and trade, then you've lost it. Because when you look at GDP, gross domestic product, what is GDP? GDP is basically the turnover of your economy. So the faster things move, then the more your GDP is going to be. And some of us have moved in the region, Hope. When you go to the southern African part of Zambia, you go and look at traffic, let's say at Martin's Drift border between Botswana and South Africa. You find that in the morning, because the trucks would have accumulated, but during the day, by the time they cross the border, all the trucks would have cleared. And, you know, you go to Bedbridge, Zimbabwe, South Africa. In the morning, there will be some trucks, but by the end of the day, by the time it is 18 hours or so, everything is cleared. When you go to the northern part of Zambia, you go to Kenya. I've been to Kenya, I've been to Tanzania. You go and look at the border between Kenya and Tanzania. You find that there is a free flow of traffic. There is no this accumulation you see in Zambia. But in Zambia, you find that all our borders, you go to Mwami border in Chipata, there is a long queue and congestion. Whichever border you go, long queue and congestion. Anybody who understands the economy knows that if you have this congestion to a country which is landlocked, our economy is essentially being suffocated. You understand? So before the UPND can talk about managing economic policy, fiscal policy, our monetary policy, let them just manage the borders. Let them allow the free flow of traffic at the borders. That's the easiest and simplest thing they can do. And the fact that they are failing to do that means that there's no hope of them being able to, properly manage our economy. There's no hope whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. All right, this is the hot seat. We'll be opening up the phone lines. The number to dial is 0974-870-877. That is 0974-870-877. If you have any question or contribution to make, our guest this morning is Patriots for Economic Progress leader, Mr. Shaun Tembo. You can start dialing now.
You're listening to the Hot Seat on Hot FM 87.7. It's time for you to call now and get involved. Call now and get involved.
All right, we now get to the phone line 0974-870-877. In case you have a question or contribution to make, you can give us a call on that line. That is 0974-870-877. And like I mentioned earlier, our guest this morning is PEP President, Mr. Shaun Tembo. Hot, hello, good morning. You're through to the hot seat. Hello, good morning. And well, if you're calling, just make sure you do not use the speaker. Just make sure you use the mouthpiece and turn down the volume on your radio. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Hope. Good morning, Hot FM. Good morning, President Shaun Tembo. Mr. Fresh Charles Mbewe on the line.
All right, Mr. Mbewe, go on with your contribution.
Thank you. President Tembo, we are in a government that I think it had no idea on how best they will govern this land. This land is governed by a constitution, but what we see now, it's more like the president is used to deal with farming. And now the mentality, even dealing with this civil servants, is just of that, where he's one-man show to direct everyone, including places or institutions that have people to deal over their matters. It's him to handle these matters. As that brings it to a way that, you can't see anyone waiting in this institution because it's him everywhere. Ministers are failing to perform. Yeah? You have a situation of like you brought the Kawambwa issue where you, as a complainant, you go to a police station and the commissioner who is in the name of you, he comes out and tell you leave from this place. So now, if we are attacked as Zambians in politics, where should we go? And when we come out and say, let's defend ourselves, it's to be arrested. Every institution has compromised with cadreism. Cadreism in PF was in a community and not in government institution. Sadly, that this government has brought cadreism in all the government institutions. So where are we? Where are we going?
All right, Mbewe, I've given you enough time. Thank you so much for your contribution.
Thank you so much.
All right, 0974-870-877. If you have any question or contribution, our guest this morning is Mr. Shaun Tembo. Let's just take in some more calls and then you can respond, Mr. Tembo. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Shaun Tembo.
Good morning, sir.
All right, your name?
My name is Kasonde, calling from Sir.
All right, go on.
Yeah, actually what Mr. Shaun Tembo is talking about is very important. I think let's not use machinery for the state to abuse other opponents.
Oh, too bad. Seems we lost that one. All right. We'll have to pick up another one. Give us a call, 0974-870-877. Also taking note of some of the questions that are coming through on our Facebook page. Hello, good morning. Good, thanks. Your name?
You're speaking to Brother Tuesday.
Sorry, didn't you get your name again?
Brother Chisha in Lusaka.
All right, go on.
Thank you so much. My eloquence is about how the institutions which are supposed to be independent in Zambia have come to a point of they can't do anything because it's like this. Even when you have a case with President Tembo, you run to the institutions where you say they are going to defend you. You find people who are having a kind of mind of capitalism and belonging to a political party. What is going to be happening with Sean Tembo come 2026? Because personally about them, people are supposed to be cutters or non-cutters. They are running institutions like this. What will be the case come 2026? Because we have in history some of the officers there, especially I'm talking about this. Some of the officials there, they applied even to stand on UPND tickets some year back. Today they are commissioners. Mr. Tembo, how do you look at the outcome of the year 2026 election? Are they going to be genuine and independent? Looking at the officers who are holding these offices, are we going to have a clear and fair election? If not, what is supposed to be done? Because it's like just complaining is not enough to our President Tembo. If there are measures we're supposed to be put in place, those measures are supposed to put in place now. What are we going to do? Because are you sure these people they are going to be fair to run the election come 2026? If not, what are you doing as opposition and other leaders to normalize the situation? Because some of us we are very much afraid. Look the way they are behaving. A commissioner, a chairperson of the election, will go and tell people before they even vote to say, we don't want you to come and quit by the end of before we vote. If you are going to do so, after you are going to go ahead and conduct the election. Where on earth, Mr. Tembo?
All right, Mr. Chisa, thank you so much.
As a voter, because it's like these institutions are no longer independent. What is supposed to be done to normalize the situation?
All right, let's allow him to respond. Thank you so much. All right, you can take those up, Mr.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very disappointing that our institutions have been compromised to this extent. In the Kawamba by-election, we had an incident where one of the ECZ commissioners came to church at St. Mary's Parish within Kawamba there. And then what they told the presiding priest was that they want to sensitize the congregants, the parishioners, about the need to vote. And then they were given a platform. But then what that commissioner ended up saying was that telling the parishioners to say, you need to vote for a candidate who can bring development to Kawamba, a candidate who the government will work with. You understand? That is campaigning on behalf of the ruling UPND party. And this is an ECZ commissioner. So that is the extent to which ECZ is compromised, the extent to which ECZ is partisan in terms of their functions. But like I said earlier, Hope, we don't feel hopeless about 2026 because in these by-elections, you must understand the way these elections function. In by-elections, like right now, UPND has sent 7 ministers to Pambasha. Okay? They've sent 7 ministers. I'm sure those ministers are throwing around money and so on and so forth. So it is easier for them to try and sway the election. But come 2026, they will not have that luxury. And to assure the last caller in terms of what we, the opposition, are doing about it, our job as opposition, because when you talk about opposition, how many are we? We are few. Sean Tembo, Fred Membe, this one, that one, Munduvire. So we are few. So the most we can do as opposition is to sensitize the people. The job of protecting the vote in 2026 lies squarely on the ordinary Zambian citizens. It is the job of the citizens themselves to ensure that on that day, on the 13th of August 2026, when they cast their vote, they remain vigilant and ensure that there is no manipulation, there is no tampering of their vote. They protect their vote. And the Zambian people need to protect their vote in 2026 in the same manner and fashion that they protected their vote in 1991, in the same manner and fashion that they protected their vote in 2011, in the same manner and fashion that they protected their vote in 2021. They need to do the same in 2026. Without the active participation of the ordinary citizens themselves, then our democracy will be lost and lost for good. So that is my advice to the Zambian people. They need to protect the vote. And us as opposition, we might not have the resources to hire people as polling agents across the entire country to pay Zambians for them to protect the vote. So the Zambian people need to ensure that they protect the vote in 2026 free of charge, without being paid any money by the opposition to say, Darama is and then must protect the vote. They need to do it out of the goodness of their heart, out of their belief that Zambia's democracy needs to be protected. They need to ensure they do that job. So us as opposition leaders, our job will be to sensitize the people, to advise the people how they can protect the vote. In terms of the actual protection of the vote, we rely on the ordinary citizens of this republic.
All right, let's take in more calls. Hello, good morning.
My sister, good morning.
Hello, good morning. Your name?
Moses. President Tony, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you so much. My appeal to you, the opposition, seems to be so divided. I think what you should do, as you've been calling upon you to come together, very, very important. If you go to the polls in 2026 as an individual party, I can assure you, you are not going to win. History has shown us, or has taught us that it is very, very difficult to pick out the party. You know, the ruling party. If you are so divided, that's the way we are. What is follow, what is so difficult for you to come together? Where is the problem? Are you power hungry? You want to be president? So our call for you is to unite. And in uniting, we are not saying that then we automatically are going to win. That we are going to pose against the big challenge to the ruling party. We don't want a parliament that is going to be dominated by the ruling party to win. So I think that's my appeal to you. Stop doing crying every day. We are trying this and that. And we are challenging us to say we should go and protect our vote. Protect our vote. What agenda do you have as the political party? You have not told us what your economic agenda is. All you have been doing is to accuse your friends who are in the ruling party. Come up with the agenda so that if you want us to go and protect the vote, then it is wasteful. Thank you so much. God bless you. We are listening.
All right. All right, thank you so much. I believe you got the questions there. We'll take in another one, 0974870-877. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Awapo.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, it's Johnny Tembo.
All right, good morning. Who's on the line?
Dr. Flowers from Garden.
All right, go on.
Mr. Johnny Tembo, you are killing yourself. You rely on the Marungu newspaper to be your candidate. President Hakainde has given hope for you. Free platform. Prima TV, they do cover you. But you go to a person, you want to embalm Marungu about human rights issues. A person who was, during his time, who have not weapons to were on gunpoint. 2 days in grave. Sama, gunpoint, 2 days in grave. You yourself, President Hakainde, his government, he never will fire any tear gas. Send to let it to Bugun to Masoni Tembo. You are beaten in Cairo Road. You even safe. That time was in the state house. So the Marungu, you are near the jail. Leave the President Hakainde alone. As the second people, we are now here. I'm in Mandevin Garden. There is a genocide under Cisco. Solar. They are using genocide. Government is taking development where PM are controlling. You yourself continue doing Barung, which is only empowering his children as come millionaire. Zambian people are being called junkies during the time of PF. Real PND is employing people. So don't waste your time, no matter you can run it to UN Charter, where about President Barungu was in prison, how can they kill him in his partner? Where were you yourself? Shame on you, John Temple. Ready to grow. That is for what?
Dr. Proud, we've given you enough time. Thank you so much.
Yes. Don't even entertain that person is a failure.
All right, Dr. Proud, I've given you enough time to raise your points there. I think we got what you had to say. We'll take in one more and then we'll allow Mr. Tembo to respond. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. You're through to the hot seat.
Yes, speaking to Mamba.
Mamba, all right, go on.
Good morning, my president.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Yes, I'm enjoying the show. You're speaking well. I've got 3 questions, I think. First, we promise you that we will protect our board, whether being paid or not. My second question, my first question is, how are you handling the president in Tonse since Mr. Lungu was being done? Then my second question is, how will you handle the issue of Mirime? Because the reason why people are going all the way from Tanzania to go to Zendene camp to go and buy vision, or in showground from Chipata, is because there is no stable price. How will you handle? Because if there is a stable price, if there is 500 Chipata, 550 bags, then whether Zendene, Pembe or not, people want to travel in good countries. So how will you handle the issue of revenue that has given us a lot? Thank you very much, Mr. President. Please work well. Don't listen to Mr. Proud. He's eating with them. We are suffering. He's also suffering. We are buying the same meal in the same shop. There is no UPND shop. There is only Zambian shop. So he's also feeling them. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Mamba, thank you so much. But you can take those up now.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll start with the first gentleman on the issue of political unity. He raised a very pertinent issue to say you opposition, you need to unite so that even the people can have clear direction come 2026. For us as Tonse Alliance, I think we took the initiative to ensure that we go out of the way to open up and embrace other political parties so that we come together. You remember, Hope, that almost all the key political parties in the Tonse Alliance previously belonged to UCA. So when we left UCA, you know, the first days, of course, were quite acrimonious. But as time went by and, you know, our heads cooled down, we were able to reach out to our brothers in UCA and say, you know, come to Tonse so that we can consolidate ourselves. And we've seen...
Maybe that's why he kept on pointing at unity in this alliance.
Yes. And we've seen that some of the people that we had left in UCA, like the FDD, have since come to Tonse and joined Tonse. In addition to that, we've seen that other political parties that were not members of UCA and who had not belonged to any alliance, like Zambia Must Prosper and the able leadership of Comrade Kelvin Mariafube, have been able to come and join Tonse. So my point here, Hope, is that Tonse is the main political movement in Zambia. That is why you see that even when Jack Mwimbo wakes up one morning and he wants to attack the opposition, he's not going to attack anybody else apart from Tonse. When the police want to harass the opposition, warn the opposition about this and that, they target Tonse because we are the main political movement. Now, I want to clarify one point. In terms of opposition politics, it is literally impossible for all of the opposition political parties to come together under one platform. For the simple reason that some of our brothers in the opposition, they look like opposition on paper, but indirectly, they are being sponsored by the ruling party to cause divisions in the opposition. so that they can point to the issue of lack of unity in the opposition. So my guidance to ordinary Zambian citizens is that even if not all political parties will come to Tonse by 2026, don't lose sight of the fact that Tonse is the main political movement, that is the only political movement that has capacity and capability to remove the UPND party from power and to usher in a more competent and sober government. So anyone who wants regime change in 2026 should not waste their vote on any other opposition political party other than the Tonse Alliance, because the Tonse Alliance is the only sure vehicle that can remove the UPND from power. Coming to Dr. Ploud, Dr. Ploud was talking about running a genset. They are running a genset at the market there, that the government is making an effort to provide electricity. You know, the bottom line about the issue of load shedding is that even at the worst level of load shedding, the government continued to export electricity, meaning that they were giving preference to the economies of other countries as opposed to the Zambian economy. Right now, things are so bad, things have increased. You know, you talk about construction. We used to buy, before load shedding, we used to buy a rod of quarry at about 3,000 kwacha. Now it's 7,000 kwacha, because those quarry factories which produce quarry have to run on gensets. And that is why blocks are now 12 kwacha. We used to buy blocks at 5 kwacha before, about a year ago, before load shedding. So things are worse off today, not because of the drought. Yes, the drought is a contributing factor, but the other major contributing factor is the mismanagement of our electricity here by prioritizing exports over the domestic market. We were told, Hope, that the ERB will introduce an emergency tariff increment. So they, increased tariffs almost by 60%. And the reasoning behind that was that once they increase the tariffs, then electricity will be more readily available, because even President Hakainde Hichilema himself was arguing to the media to say which one is better, expensive electricity or no electricity. And people were saying, okay, fine, if you increase tariffs and you say you're going to provide us with the electricity, then well and good, increase the tariffs. And they increased the tariffs. But the load shedding has continued. You understand? So the UPND are incapable of keeping even the most basic of their promises. They are failing to do that. Coming to the last gentleman, I'm happy. He raised three key issues, and I was very happy about the assurance which he gave in the first item, which wasn't a question, but rather just an assurance to the Tonse Alliance, where he assured us that he will protect the vote, among other ordinary citizens. And that is the kind of mindset that we need from the Zambian people. People need to show patriotism. This is democracy. Democracy is not about Sean Tembo. Democracy is not about Tonse Alliance. Democracy is about our country, the Republic of Zambia. Once you allow dictatorship to take shape, it will be literally impossible to get rid of. So if people are going to allow President Hakainde Hichilema to become a fully fledged dictator and they don't do anything about it, the day they will wake up and say, let's do something about it, he will be so well entrenched as a dictator that it will be difficult to remove him. It will be like countries which have been ruled by the same president, like Gabon, where the same person has ruled for 40 years. Why? Because at the time that that president in Gabon started showing signs of dictatorship, the people didn't have the courage to challenge him and to tell him, look, you have done your part, you need to move now, we need to allow democracy to flourish. So the same thing will happen in Zambia. When we talk about the need to challenge the UPND about their dictatorial tendencies, we are not saying that we want the power ourselves. We just want to ensure that our credentials as a democracy, Zambia as a well-established democracy, we don't lose those credentials to one man. So every person in Zambia has a duty and responsibility to protect the tenets of democracy. If they have to do it with their lives, so be it. So I'm happy with that. Let me answer the last two. They are critical. The issue of the Tonse presidency and the issue of Mirimil. I'll start with the issue of the Tonse presidency in terms of a presidential candidate for 2026. For us as an alliance, of course, our leader for now is President Edgar Chagwa Lungu. He is our leader, and he is the person that we had adopted as our candidate for 2026. And if the UPND, as they have, used Mingalato to deny President Lungu to stand, we are going to wait for guidance from President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, who was our chosen candidate, to guide us to say, in view of what is happening, this is the direction that the alliance will take. So for us as alliance members, we are looking up to President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, who is our official chosen Tonse Alliance candidate, to give us guidance at the right time. At
this point, people need to be warming up to candidates for someone.
Yes, and I'm sure that our initially chosen Tonse Alliance candidate is aware of that fact. And we are also confident that he has the necessary wisdom to make to provide the right guidance at the right time. It is not in our place for us to push our chosen candidate to say, can you now guide us right away? He will provide the guidance at the right time.
So I feel there's still time, still have enough time to do that.
Yes, there's plenty of time, Danny. Can you remember when President Mwanawasa was introduced to the Zambian people? He was introduced to the Zambian people a month before elections, and he won. You understand? So we believe that there is time. We are not in a hurry. We are very confident that our initially chosen Tonse Alliance candidate will provide the guidance, the guidance to the alliance at the right time. We are confident about that. Then the issue of Mirimil. Yes, the issue of Mirimil. When you have a competent government, we are not supposed to have Mirimil issues, both in terms of availability as well as pricing. We are supposed to have a stable, affordable price for Mirimil, and Mirimil is supposed to be readily available. The issue about Mirimil is basically lack of storage facilities. When we say storage facilities, I don't mean tents and sheds, no. I mean long-term storage facilities like grain silos and those underground storage facilities. That is why I was very happy when, the late former President Michael Sata was elected into office. One of the first major projects, infrastructure projects he announced is that he was going to build underground grain silos in each of the provincial centers of Zambia, each with a capacity of 1 million metric tons of grain. If that project, if President Michael Sata didn't die, and if he had implemented that project, and if we had that storage capacity in each provincial center, 1 million metric tons, in the 10 provinces of Zambia, you would be talking about storage capacity of 10 million metric tons. And our national consumption per annum, hope, in terms of both human consumption as well as animal consumption, in terms of these animal feeds, is about 2 million metric tons. So if you have storage capacity of 10 million metric tons, that should be able to feed you for 5 years, even if you are 5 years of drought. You understand? And the new government of President Hakainde Hichilema does not mention the issue of storage. Right now, our combined storage for grain, both long-term in terms of the silos, as well as short-term in terms of these sheds and tents, is only about 700,000 metric tons. So you find that every time we record a bumper harvest, most of the grain actually goes to waste. It gets rotten. That is why even our neighbors, I'm sure, they laugh at us. One year, you are there going to Botswana, sending Food Reserve Agency to Botswana, Zimbabwe, South Africa, looking for market to sell excess grain because you are afraid it to get rotten. And then the other year, you are going to the neighboring countries begging for maize because you are out of maize. And I think we confuse our neighbors. They wonder, what kind of people are these Zambians? Why can they think straight? Why can they store enough grain to feed themselves? You understand? So for us as Tonse Alliance, should the Zambian people be gracious enough to elect us into office, which I'm confident they will, because they want to improve their welfare. One of our first priorities in terms of infrastructure is to implement the program that the late former President Michael Sata had started implementing of having underground storage facilities. Those are long-term storage facilities where you can keep grain even for 30 years without the grain going to waste. We are going to implement that. And then once we have that, we ensure stability in terms of supply of mealie meal as well as in terms of pricing of mealie meal.
All right. Well, Mr. Tembo, we'll take in the last call and we can close with that. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Hello, good morning. Your name?
My name is Mr. Collins.
Collins, all right. Do you have us on speaker? If you do, just make sure you use the mouthpiece.
Yeah, I've moved it.
All right, go on.
Mr. Shimon, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
First and foremost, I want to agree with you the issue of human rights, Madam. There is no person who can stay in cells without toilet for 2 weeks.
All right, unfortunately, Mr. Collins, your line is bad. We still can't get you.
But me, I can get you.
All right, no, unfortunately, we need to hear what you're saying and we can't. We're struggling there.
But we are communicating. Just to get you because
Unfortunately, the line is bad, so we'll just have to pick up another call. Hello, good morning.
Hello?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Fine, thanks. Your name?
You are talking to Morgan.
Morgan, all right, go on, Morgan.
Within Lusaka.
All right, go on.
How are you, Hope?
Good, thanks, Morgan.
How are you, the guest?
How are you, sir?
I'm okay. You are speaking very well, but you are missing a point a little bit. They don't alliance and the European government. You know, here in our country, we have got somebody from UN, from United Nations Human Rights, who is respecting the rights of Zambia. And Zambia is on the map as a country forward. And if they hear that there is a human rights abuse, can't talk about Zambia has taken so much. You don't have human rights. And you as a Social Alliance, you Emmanuel Mamba, you load a bunch of paper, human rights will say, here, my paper back there. I think it will end up Zambia to Kaona. Like in Vazo, to the abuse of human rights to food, from the area. But that's why that makes sense. To find out if it's true. But on the map, Zambia is a democratic country and a peaceful country, respected by the United Nations of Human Rights. That's a fact. But that place we saw yesterday. That's another issue. And for me, the point is that, are you serious? There's abuse of human rights in this country. Who is abusing human rights? Previous government and this government. When Samasama and Kaunda killed, that church was accused for prison, being in prison. And we saw a lot of Mr. Park, looking for better bills. And we saw...
All right, you should be wrapping up. I've given you enough time.
This is only issue what I wanted.
All right.
No, I'm with Tembo. He's my friend, Mr. Tembo. I know that Tembo, what I want to say, to answer these issues properly.
All right, let's give him time to do that. All right, thank you very much. Right, we can close with this one, Mr. Tembo. You can respond to him.
Yeah, the issue of the UN Special Rapporteur for Human Rights, Madam Irene Khan, coming to Zambia, my belief is that it was invoked by the reports that the UN received from various victims of human rights abuses in Zambia, as well as their own initial investigation, because they are not going to take whatever reports are made on face value and then immediately send a special rapporteur. You know, when the UN sends a special rapporteur, it means they've identified a prima facie case of human rights abuses. And that is normally done through an initial investigation. That is what makes them make a determination of whether to send a special rapporteur to a particular location to go and do a detailed investigation, or to just brush aside those allegations as baseless. So the fact that the United Nations decided to send a special rapporteur to Zambia to do a detailed investigation about human rights abuses is testimony enough that the UN found a prima facie case of human rights violations. And I'll ask Mr. Morgan, just as a by the way, if tomorrow police officers came to his house and they arrested him and charged him with murder, while he knows in his mind that he has not killed anybody, they just arrest him, charge him with murder, and they incarcerate him, keep him in jail for 1.5 years. They do trial, and then on the day that the judgment is supposed to come out, which is supposed to exonerate him, to say, no, Mr. Morgan, you didn't kill anybody, the state decides to withdraw the case. How would he feel himself as an individual? Because, these issues of human rights, when it's happening to someone else, it looks simplistic. You'll be saying, those people are crybabies, those people are tarnishing the image of the country. But can you imagine what has happened to that person happening to you? How would you feel? If police officers come to your house and they torture you, they get the pliers and start torturing you, how would you feel? You understand? When someone else is narrating the story, it sounds simplistic. So as citizens, let us be fair to one another. When a fellow citizen is abused, let us not be selfish by, like undermining the complaints of that person. Because tomorrow it will be you. You understand? And then coming to the issue of the comparison, which Mr. Morgan tried to make, to say there were human rights abuses under the previous PF regime. So why are you complaining about these alleged human rights abuses under the UPND regime? I think as Zambians, we shouldn't be making that comparison, because if we are reasonable people, we should be saying there should be no human rights abuses. Not no, in KK there were these abuses, in RB there were these abuses, in PF there were these abuses, so why are you complaining about the abuses in UPND? It should never be like that. And also, we need to remember that the Patriotic Front was voted out of office by the Zambian people because the people were not happy with the way the PF was running the affairs of the country. So when the UPND used the PF as a defense for their atrocities, what exactly are they telling the people? In my view, they are telling the people that they too should be voted out of office in 2026, which in my view is exactly what the Zambian people should do. Because the people of Zambia should not tolerate any misbehavior from a government. When the people of Zambia choose Sean Tembo to say, Sean Tembo, we want to be our president, Sean Tembo should not go to State House to basically serve his own interests or serve the interests of his political party. No. The reason the Zambian people would have chosen Sean Tembo is so that Sean Tembo can work for them, improve their standard of living, improve their welfare, protect their human rights. That's the job. You understand? So the people should not be tolerant. The people of Zambia were not tolerant in 1991. They kicked out KK and his unit. The people of Zambia were not tolerant. In 2011, they kicked out the MMD and Rupia Banda. The people of Zambia in 2021 were not tolerant. They kicked out President Edgar Lungu and his Patriotic Front government. And similarly, my appeal is that the people of Zambia should not be tolerant in 2026. They need to kick out President Hakainde Hichilema and his UPND party. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Tembo, thank you so much for coming through this morning.
Thank you, Hope.
All right, it's been great having you on the show. All right, so that's it for Tuesday's edition of The Hot Seat, and the guest this morning was Patriots for Economic Progress President, and this is Mr. Sean Tembo. You will catch Peter Zulu on Thursday for Thursday's edition of The Hot Seat. Have a good day.
That was it.